Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is Josh. He's actually a super cool guy. He's doing his PhD right now in physics. And one really cool thing about him is he's actually a scientist and he also does Reiki work. He's Reiki certified, so he has both foot in science and magic. So I definitely enjoyed talking to him offset, and we're just talking right now. And hey, how you doing, bro?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really good, man. Lunch was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a good time talking with you.
yeah. So tell me a little more about the physics that you work in.
Well, I'm doing my PhD, more kind of like in a mathematical physics, but it is in something called Einstein Cartan gravity. So it's where you will include the what's called the torsion tensor into Einstein's theory of general relativity, and you look at the consequences of that. So, if you're familiar with the standard model of particle physics, particles like quarks, neutrons, leptons are characterized by their mass and their spin. And in general relativity, we say like the mass or the energy of these particles will create a gravitational field. And what the theory that I'm looking at does is it extends the spin of elementary particles that was discovered through this Stern-Gerlach experiment. Think maybe around like 1930s or early 1900s, prior to World War II, obviously, because all the things that happened there. And imagining if this spin also had a field like the gravitational field, which is the gravitational field, but an extension to Einstein's theory. So that's what I look at.
Cool. And how's that fit into Reiki?
That's a good question, right? So I mean, there's several different ways that you could look at this, right? So Reiki is like this cosmic energy, and uh, it's interesting because even being a Reiki master, I'm aware of what's going on, but I can't say that I understand it. It's
Do you think
this,
that's beauty in there?
yeah, and I don't think you need to understand everything to be able to appreciate it fully.
I agree with you 100%. Like,
It's
I'm trying to understand magic, brother.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, I know
Mhm,
magic at the end of the day is just science we don't understand yet.
mhm.
Um, but I'm trying to understand it, you know?
Yeah. So, multiple people will say different things. Like some people will say, Reiki is love and light. I like to think of it as that cosmic energy again. I kind of, like, yeah, imagine you're looking up the Milky Way and you got like a bright, what's it, night sky, and you can see
Yeah.
all the purples and the blues and the stars. Like, imagine taking that and making it into a paint. And you are an artist with a paintbrush and you are painting on the canvas, right? And as the artist, you can turn this Reiki energy into like a type of healing flowing into the person. Maybe you're sending the energy to them far away. Maybe you want tenderness like silk. Maybe you want grounding like the earth,
Mm-hmm.
or fire to wake up these chakras in people. And that's what I always think of Reiki and the feelings that you put behind it. Often in some of these things with magic, you'll hear people say putting intent behind the words. And I think psychologically, there's evidence to back this up. If you talk to a social worker or a psychologist, they'll tell you that most of human communication is through nonverbals as opposed to the actual words that we say. Like, you can say, "You're so beautiful," or you can say, "You're so beautiful." And they have totally different meanings based on the emotion and the intent that's put behind the words, which I really think is one thing that makes the spoken English language quite beautiful.
Or any language for that matter.
Yeah, any language where you can, put that the emotion behind the words. Like when I was learning Chinese, like Chinese, you got like
Uh,
four tones. You can
Mandarin?
you can see, yeah, you can say like ma, 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 and ma. and they all mean different things. One of them's your mother, one of them's a horse, one of them's a question,
And
and
it means
it's
a horse and your mother,
you're right.
same
Yeah,
sound.
yeah. You don't want to
Okay.
say the wrong thing, right, and call your mother a horse by
Yeah, yeah.
accident. But there's my fun example there. So you have to be a bit more aware when you're speaking those languages. At least from all the things that I learned, and of course too, like I love all the artistry to the written language, but I digress. Anyway, so
Nah, nah,
there's
you're
there's
not
my
digressing.
image of Reiki.
Um, Someone said that Reiki is like giving someone unconditional love.
Yeah,
Would you agree with that? Just like total love, and just trying to help them, heal them.
I think like I can see how you would get into that paradigm, and I definitely think that is a good place to be as a healer. Like, my understanding is more like whenever, yeah, and along with the same aspect, whenever you do Reiki on somebody, you just like, you want to heal them. The Reiki goes exactly where it needs to go, right?
The energy goes exactly where it needs to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, and you let that flow through you, like you know I don't understand the other person well enough to give them the things that they need, but this energy, this Reiki, does. And just being present, not forcing the energy. And I think to go along with that, you accept the person for where they're at, right? You see what they need. You don't try to force anything on them. You ask them if they even want the Reiki in the
I
first
mean, yeah,
place. It's
yeah.
incredibly important as you go to heal the other person that they receive the healing, that you're not doing anything that they don't want,
Okay.
right?
And you said the one of your
Mhm.
roommates called you out on this. Like, well, show me the evidence or the research, and
Exactly.
there was plenty of research,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of articles.
He originally asked me that, and I thought, oh, that's quite an excellent question, right? You're a science person. You want to
Rational.
have some
Yeah,
evidence, right?
you want to
Like,
have a
we
lot of
should be
evidence.
able to test this. And so, yeah, I looked it up. There were all the articles that I sent you, and I was impressed. One of the articles that I remember, right, is they did three different tests for Reiki, and I think it was resting heart rate that they measured. A nice qualifiable thing that's exactly measured a particular way medically. And this wasn't. I think it was in the Journal of Nursing or something where they wrote this, or somebody's master's or dissertation, PhD dissertation defense work. I think that's what it was. And what she did is she looked at the effect of placebo, sham Reiki, and actual Reiki on the resting person's heart rate. And what she found out that you could distinguish the actual Reiki from the sham Reiki and the placebo, and there was a measurable correlation that was different than either of the other
Okay,
ones.
so there's a different correlation of how you transfer the energy or do the Reiki work
How there was the correlation to the person's resting heart rate,
to the
right?
two different
Yeah,
type of
that you
Reiki.
could,
What
yeah,
is the difference, by the way?
so that you could see that the Reiki had a noticeably more of an effect lowering the person's resting heart rate than either the sham Reiki or the placebo did. And as a scientist, what that's telling you is there's something special about the Reiki. Reiki's doing something that these two aren't,
Okay, what
right?
is sham Reiki and
Sham
the
Reiki
other Reiki?
was Sham Reiki's like you're just gonna say, "Oh, Reiki, Reiki, da da da, do the thing," but
Okay,
you're not actually. Maybe
putting the
you're not
intent behind it.
attuned to it. Maybe you don't know. Yeah, maybe you're not attuned to it. Maybe you're not doing it with the feelings. Maybe you're just trying to get it over with, and you don't have the mindset of healing the other person or da 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 da. It could be a multitude of different things, right? Like,
Okay, and what's the other Reiki?
the actual Reiki or
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
yeah.
the actual Reiki is
So
just okay, just real Reiki.
yeah, so well, let me give you the history, right? So the Reiki originated from Dr. Mikao Usui in Japan, right? And I think this was after the World War. I'm pretty sure. And what happened was uh, Dr. Usui had recently came to Christianity, and he was evangelizing his fellow countrymen. And
Okay.
the and the idea, and here was the idea, right? Similar to some of the questions you're asking me, like the Japanese people asked Dr. Usui, "Okay, if your religion is so great, go and do the miracles that Jesus did, right?" if there's any actual thing to this, you go and prove it to us, right?
Yeah.
So, well, Dr. Usui traveled all over the world, I think for 20 years to try to figure out how to do these miracles and give an answer that would satisfy him to his countrymen. And, well, he didn't find an answer and was quite besieged by his lack of finding anything. So Dr. Usui comes back to Japan and, well, he decides to go up on the mountaintop and fast for 20 days. So he's fasting, just not eating anything. And on still nothing happens at the 20th day. Well, he wakes up on the 21st day and he sees these floating golden symbols in the air, which were the thing that was going to become the Reiki.
Okay.
Now, there are multiple things you could be wondering at this point.
He's hallucinating.
Maybe he's hallucinating.
Uh-huh.
Yada, yada, yeah, right.
Or maybe he's seeing reality for what it truly is.
Exactly. It could be.
I wasn't there, so.
Either of those two possibilities could be quite true, right? And then the interesting part is Dr. Usui goes on to perform 3 miracles. Now, there's only one that I remember off the top of my head.
But all 3 of them were miracles.
All 3 of them
Okay.
were miracles that he did. And this was to, I think, lead credence to whatever had happened in his heart, in his mind, in his soul, in his spirit, in his body that was allowing these miracles to happen, right? So the one that I remember is he comes down off the mountain. He's feeling great, right? Has all this energy. Maybe that was the first miracle, but I don't remember.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, right? So he comes down off the mountain and he has a big Japanese meal. Now, if you've been fasting for that long, you know you shouldn't have a big Japanese meal or any big meal after you fasted for 20 days, right? Your body probably just can't handle it and it'd be very detrimental. Has big Japanese meal, great, nothing happens. And I think that was the second miracle, the one that I remember, right? And it's just like, oh, wow, okay, that's quite interesting. So, yeah, there's the story of how Reiki came to be in a sense. And then those symbols, the feeling, the energy, the awareness was passed on from him to his disciples, lineage, or whatever.
Got it.
Maybe disciples is a little
his
too.
students. We'll say his
students. That sounds a
his
little bit
students.
better.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Okay, got it.
yeah.
So let me ask you this: you touched on something. How does physics and God play a role with each other, or you think they're completely separate?
Well, one of my favorite things. Well.
There you go.
That we were talking about earlier.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
There's this mathematical theorem called Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and it basically says in any framework of logic or mathematics, there are true things that are unprovable, right? So let's say that even in a mathematical scenario, you could have something that's entirely true, but there's no way to prove it. We already know how people have an issue when you don't really prove something.
Like time travel?
Or even if something is true, right, and you have it proved, some people are like, no, I don't want to accept it, right? So take, for instance, you do have something that's true, but you have no way to prove it, right? I like to think of math as like, imagine you got like a Venn diagram or something, right? And on one side, it's filled up with all the provable things. And then maybe there's some fringe things, and then you got another one. But these Venn diagrams, they don't overlap at all. And then this other side over here are all the unprovable things that you can see. Maybe God or energy or the gods if you're, multiply Gnostic or whatever, right?
Okay.
Exist, right? Or maybe you're agnostic and you just believe there's something. Maybe you're an atheist and you're just like, there's more to the world than I realize, but I don't believe in any of those other things, right? Anyway, there's some separate thing that even mathematics tells us does exist, right?
Nice.
So that's always what I think on how it ties in.
There's something.
The Reiki might be in this sector of reality that is true, but there is no way to prove that it is.
Which leads us to quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics, yeah. Quantum mechanics. Oh, here we go. Open the can of worms,
Do
right?
it for it, bro.
Yeah.
This is all you, because I understand very little about
Yeah.
quantum mechanics
Yeah, so
and wave particle collapsing and other things like that.
well, the
Educate us.
biggest buzzword from quantum mechanics is nuclear, because whenever you say nuclear, people freak out, right? So we know quantum mechanics works because it made a giant bomb, and that was horrible.
Right.
right?
Oppenheimer.
So there's something about this quantum mechanics that definitely has measurable effects in reality. So we know it works. Explaining how or why and the right interpretation is an entirely different matter. So on. Something a bit less exciting now that I've hooked your attention, right? Are several different experiments. One of which I'll refer to again from earlier was the Stern-Gerlach experiment, which told us about spin. So we had that experiment that told us there was more to particles than just their mass, or the plum pudding model, or the atom model that you've seen. Now we keep going, and there are different interpretations of quantum mechanics, and several easy ways to get your feet wet in quantum, I think. My favorite is probably Schrodinger's cat.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah.
don't know if it's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You don't know if the cat is alive or dead.
So the theory was he put the cat in a box and just left it in there.
With a vial poison.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
We try to
So-
leave out the animal cruelty, right?
Yeah. So he left the cat in the box with a vial poison, and
Yeah.
he's all like, theoretically, we don't know if the cat is dead or alive.
Exactly.
So it could technically be both.
Yeah, so the idea is it's both until you measure it. And that's like one of the same ways that we can think about quantum mechanics, right? We might know that the cat is, it's just kind of like the superposition of states for the cat. It's both alive and it's both dead, but it's only 50% alive and 50% dead because you don't know. But as soon as you measure and you take the lid off of the box, now you've measured and you know that the cat is alive. Hey, he didn't knock it over, and you're
So
happy
if
your
it's
cat's
going
not
out
dead.
or it's dead. Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, so that's the probably one of my favorite ideas to think of when we think of quantum mechanics. It's all about superpositions of states, not knowing exactly where it would be. Now, maybe you had a really wiry cat, right? And this cat just wanted to get out of the box and was wild and had a bunch of energy. Maybe we'd say the cat is 75% dead and 25% alive because it has more of a chance to knock over the poison since it's so wiry, right? And now when you open it up, it's actually still alive.
Is that our place as people or scientists or observers to say that, or do we just say
absolutely?
the cat could be dead or alive? That's it.
All you can actually say is the cat could be dead or alive.
So it doesn't matter if it has high energy, it's
You-
bigger, smaller. None of that shit really matters.
You can give weights to the probabilities, though, and that was my purpose of that example.
Aren't you swaying the scientific experiment by putting in your own, personal opinion or your own theories on it, versus just taking a step back
I
and
think
just
that's a good point, and probably where the analogy of the cat fails. So because
Yeah.
you saw right there, right? I'm like, it's a wiry cat, right?
yeah.
But when it comes to particles, there's not really there isn't any room for interpretation. We have the particle, it does this, it moves on a trajectory. So there's where the analogy of the cat's failing. Like we can say like if I do all these things to the particle, I can get this distribution of quantum mechanical particles, and they're given by this particular wave function, which is like this superposition of states for the cat. I'm saying a bunch of words here, right? So
Big
stop
words.
me if you,
Yeah.
stop me if
So,
it's anything too
Let me
much.
hear this conversation. So the new buzz theory is the fact that we could change matter with observation or just the power of our mind, and the double slit experiment in quantum mechanics
Yeah.
is like a kind of a backdoor in. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Oh yeah, no. So like, here's the perfect one, right? So I love that you brought this one
I
up.
like how energetic you are, dude.
The cool part of this experiment, right, is so say you take an electron,
Yes.
and we're gonna shoot this through our double slit experiment.
Yes.
Now, let's say there's no lights on in the room, and you shoot your electron through. You'll get this wave pattern along the wall. And that's quite interesting because it's a particle. It should only wind up on one part of the slit or the other part of the slit, right? Which one did it go through? but you get this wave pattern. So there's like a peak and trough, peak and trough, peak and trough. And how they measured this thing originally is you get some, I think it's some fluorescent material that the electron will hit, and it will cause it to make light. And if you take like a long exposure of this photograph over time, you'll see this like here, 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 way more patterns, lines on the wall than there are actually slits. But if you take like a camera or something and you observe the electron going through the slit, it will only make two. So this very act of observing the electron as it goes through the slit changes the outcome at the end.
Nice. And I mean, you do Reiki work, so you know that we all have like magnetic fields around us, like an energy field. So, and you do Einstein's work, so this is going to fit in perfectly. Einstein said that the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. So what does that mean exactly to you?
Ooh. Well,
You
my
said
first thought is quantum field theory stuff, and I wish I had more information to talk on it in an educated way.
Give us your personal opinion, bro. Because you love physics and you love Reiki work, so that's why I asked you to be on my podcast.
Well, okay. Here's where I think that I could say the most solid thing with that. Take for an example an electron, right? And we'll talk about electromagnetism here. This is basic
personal
physics.
Theory. Yeah.
Okay, so we have position, velocity, and acceleration. So position, you know where you're at. Velocity, you know how fast and in what direction you're going. And acceleration, you know you're speeding up in a direction or slowing down in a direction. Right? Okay. Now, let's take those three words and apply them to an electron. An electron, we know its position, and it has a charge, and it has an electric field. Okay, there's position, electric field, charge. We have an electron, and it's moving. It has a velocity. Now it has a magnetic field. Okay, now we have an electron, and it's accelerating. Now we have a radiation field, an electromagnetic wave coming off of this electron. The interesting thing is, depending on your frame of observation, you can set the magnetic field to zero. You can entirely make it an electric field, which is quite fascinating just based on your frame of reference. So, and then I don't know if this answered your original question, but going off of that, you can start asking the question like field or particle, right? And this is all purely a classical picture for the moment. Here's this magnetic field that the electron is making. Does this magnetic field that the electron's making act on it, right? And it's usually such a negligible field that the physicists will throw it out, but technically it's still there.
It's still there.
Now, if we go further and get closer to the heart of the issue that I think you were talking about, like field or particle, you can think of particles as like fields and fields as particles. One of the ideas that I'm thinking of is we have the gravitational field, and if you try to look at this from a quantum field theoretic perspective, people say there's a graviton exchanging, between different particles that's imparting a gravitational field. Now, don't take me wrong, we don't have a field of quantum gravity, but that's one idea that people have had. Now you can apply the same thing to electromagnetism, and you'll get these photons, which are kind of like your electromagnetic radiation that are telling these particles how to talk with each other.
That's where I'm leaning to.
Yeah. And there's the quantum version of the particle where it's not really a dot, it's kind of like this distribution over space. Yes, we have this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, right? I know I'm saying a lot of words.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So what I'm leading to is we all have a field.
Yeah.
And if you change your energy, you change your state.
Yeah.
You change the field.
Yeah.
And you can change particle. Is that theoretically it's possible?
It's there are all sorts of interesting things that can happen in the body and the particles.
Like that story I told you about the guy that I met that cured his own cancer.
Yeah.
He was able to change his he was able to change the way he was thinking and
Yeah.
meditated and just got away. He changed his field.
It's making me think of like mind over matter,
It is,
right?
but
Yeah.
but that's what I'm leading to. I
Yeah.
mean, you're saying theoretically it's
Mm.
possible.
Yeah.
There's different theories on it, and there's science. Is it?
Actually, I think where I was going ties in with this well too. So Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says, if you know where you're at, then you can't know how fast you're going. Specifically is what's it? The uncertainty in where you're at and the uncertainty in your momentum can't fall underneath h bar, right? H bar over 2 or something. Blah blah blah. I said a bunch of words, but it basically says,
You're collapsing time and space. Is that what it says?
if you know where you're at, you have no idea how fast you're going. So, to tie this back in with the thing that you were saying a moment ago, it's like if you know if you know exactly what you're feeling in a moment, maybe you don't know where you're going to wind up.
But
And
isn't there beauty in that?
yeah, and I think that's the fun part,
Yeah,
right?
the
Like,
unknown, brother.
yeah, and if you know exactly where you want to go, maybe you don't know exactly where you're at. And that gives you a bunch of freedom in the way
Creativity.
that, yeah, and where you could be.
And you don't have to live in the past because
Mhm.
the past predicts the future.
And you don't have to live in a confined box because, the freedom of not knowing too.
Yeah, we just jumped into philosophy, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen.
Here we are.
Here we
We've
are.
arrived.
No, but that's just Joe
Mhm.
Dispenza. That's what I read up on. He does a
Yeah.
lot of like quantum research,
Mhm.
and the thing is, like, remember, like, you're supposed to collapse time and space,
Yeah.
so you don't know where you are
Mhm.
or where you're going,
Yeah.
and that way you have the ability to not be in a flight or flight state,
Mhm.
and out of that you can create. Whether you want to, most people just want to heal themselves.
Mhm.
They're in pain, suffering.
Yeah.
They'll go the distance, to stop that pain and suffering.
Yeah, it makes me think of Doctor Strange, right?
Oh,
He's a
the-
relatable thing, right? He gets in this car accident, can't do surgery anymore,
Yeah.
tries all over the world to find it, and then eventually finds this whole new world, right?
yeah.
Through the magic and his things. And who's to say that it really doesn't exist in our reality, right? So,
Mhm.
we have this Reiki, we have other things that people have experienced, we have great revelations that are given onto people through their meditation. And uh, you know, there's results that I've heard from you that are a thing. I wish that I was more aware of these things and knew the truth, right?
Same here, brother.
Right?
But is it our truth or someone else's truth? That's where the argument comes in too.
I think the wise man would say another person's truth is valuable enough that I should listen to it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very wise thing to say.
Yeah.
And Josh just said that because he's the wise man doing this PhD. Yeah. What else? I was gonna ask you something else. I totally forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Mhm.
But the world was there the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
He just discovered it.
Yep.
So he's the one that actually changed. But I've actually seen people literally cure cancer, just with the power of their. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes, but I believe it. And that if they could do it, my theory is if someone else could do something, I can do it too.
Yeah.
I just believe that very much. And people that do like random remission, but is it really that random, or we just don't understand it?
Well, I mean,
You're not a doctor.
as the mathematician, I would say do some studies with your statistics and see if you find a correlation. If there's no correlation, I wouldn't worry about it too much more. If there is a correlation, which I expect that there would be because there's enough stories of these things, then I would say, okay, mathematically we can't rule it out. Anyone who does is frankly an idiot. The math says this. That's the end of the story.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, speaking of math, you told me that mathematics solves everything, and someone else told me that, and I told you that. You're like, nah, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And you're like telling them
no.
about the end of the space and how things spin faster. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh yeah. So my response to this one dude's thing was, okay, if it describes everything, explain to me why we haven't figured out dark energy and dark matter. Why do different parts of our galaxy, let alone all the other ones in the whole universe, spin faster at different points and slower at different points than what we actually predict? We have no idea what like dark matter or dark energy is. People will come up with these weakly interacting massive particles theories that could describe it, but to my knowledge, which maybe, wrong.
But you have your ear to the grindstone.
This would be my question. Maybe somebody will tell me something different, but my question would be, okay, we have never observed any of these particles, right? So, okay, there's some iffy stuff right there. And then dark energy. Okay, dark energy. We clearly see the expansion of the universe. No one knows why, right?
So the universe is constantly expanding.
Yeah, we have no idea.
But have you even seen outside of our own galaxy?
Oh yeah, no, we can
Have,
use like
can we?
light that's so old, and you can see a redshift, what it's called, for these galaxies moving further away, right? You ever hear this kind of like Doppler effect when you get your ambulance going past you on
I've
a
heard that in
highway or
house
something?
music.
Right? Yeah. Or it's take your speaker one day, and maybe you're outside and it's a tough speaker, right? And you're gonna take this thing, turn it up real loud, and chuck it all the way across a football field. Let it go.
And that's just sound traveling.
Yeah, because the sound waves are getting pulled away from you because it's the sound's being emitted, it's being pulled away.
Okay.
And you get this Doppler shift in the things. Now, the same exact thing can happen to light due to, gravitational effects on it. Right? So, since the universe is expanding, this light wave that's like a sound wave going up and down, imagine that, and it's getting stretched apart by the expansion of the universe.
Okay.
Right? And when you stretch something with a frequency like that and you pull it apart, it decreases the energy. And red light is weaker than blue light is. For the example I gave you earlier, like ultraviolet light will like burn you, and gamma rays will give you cancer. And well, if you sit in red light, maybe you get a little warm or something, right?
Yeah.
But it ain't gonna kill you. You just get a little warm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's due to the different energy in light. And
But here's the thing.
yeah.
You said different energy and light.
Mm-hmm.
There's studies that prove that when you have like yellow light or red light, just like a light bulb, it gives you more creativity.
Yeah.
So what's the energy being transferred to
Yeah,
you
so-
to become more creative?
Well,
Do you know that, or you just
the physical thing that I'm thinking off of the top of my head is, well, yellow light is stronger than red light. It has more energy, and that's the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that's a physical thing. Now, that doesn't discount any of the psychological things, right? Like, there's my here's an
I
interesting
like yellow
one
more.
that I
anyways.
learned in psychology, right? Is if you take somebody and you put them in like a bright yellow room without any other like stimulations, yellow will make you like go crazy, right?
Really?
Or if you put them in a red room, they'll start to get like an elevated blood pressure and get mad. Like there's different
Okay.
colors that are associated with things. Like I think blue can be very calming, but it can also be like an excess depression, right? Take anything that's good and take it too far, right? Like you just said, you like yellow was associated with creativity, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you take creativity to go far? You go a little, oh wow, there's all sorts of things going on in here.
Yeah.
Like, and that was an extreme example that I gave you too, of course, but like there are definitely interesting things associated with different colors like that.
Got it.
Yeah, but I'd say that's more a psychology and a human thing than a physics thing that I know. I'd love to have a discussion with like a psychologist and hear their viewpoints
yeah,
on it.
Got it. I just want to hear your point.
Yeah.
So speaking of the extreme, I'm actually going to Guatemala
Yeah.
in August, and I'm doing a dark retreat. Do you know what that is? Like
No,
a dark room, where you're in complete isolation, like outside of town,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a dark room
Mhm.
with no sound,
Yeah.
no light,
Mhm.
no phones, no contact with other people. You just stay there for 5 days,
Yeah.
and then we'll see what happens. Time and space
Yeah.
collapses,
Yeah, no, I think it'll
and
happen.
you might go mad. We'll see.
Probably within an hour or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 5 days. I mean, someone's trying to feed me through a double door,
Yeah.
and there's water and there's a toilet, but that's pretty much it, dude. And you're just in your own thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, my thought is that scares the crap out of me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, just face yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like remember we were talking earlier.
It's-
Just
I'm-
get out of your own way.
There's so many things to think about, right? Like it would be intense, like I think I'm not where you're at, but like for me, I think I would have to work up to that.
I mean,
Like,
I've never done that either, but
yeah,
just
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
jumping into it.
Yeah, but you're like, guy here's meditating for like, 3 hours a day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
I try.
I don't do that. So like, you have all these other things that you're bringing that led you to want to do that in the
Yeah.
first place,
They
right? Me being me, it's like, oh boy, okay, I think I would like to work up and meditate more before I would put myself in that really intense situation.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Got it.
But that's just me too. Like I think it sounds fascinating. But like me right now, I'm like, oh crap. But also on that point too, sometimes the things that make us go oh crap are the things that we need to do the most.
True.
Yeah.
True. On a last note, what do you think people can do just to better themselves, bro, in life?
Ooh.
I always ask this person, I always ask this question on the last note. What do you think people could do just to better themselves, bro? Let's say you're in
Yeah.
a shitty situation, you don't have a job, you're broke, or you're just unhappy, or like you said, sometimes you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed.
Oh boy.
I'm talking to Josh, not
Yeah.
the Reiki Josh, not physicist Josh, just Josh
I don't know. Like
or
I
Joshua.
think I know the extent to which I don't know all the troubles that people have. And I think, like, that makes my heart, ponder and hurt for all the other people, right? Like, the things that I may say may work for, one particular person and not help this other person at all or not. But so give me like a small moment to think.
Take your time.
Yeah,
You can say
yeah.
just breathe
Yeah,
or take
yeah.
a cold shower.
Yeah, take a cold shower.
Gratitude is a big
Mhm.
one. Do some math equations.
Probably a deep breath.
Deep breath.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath,
Yeah.
man. Just realize you're still breathing.
Yeah, I've been doing yoga for a while, and I think the thing that could help everybody if they just try it without any resistance is, even if you're at work and you really don't want to be at work, just inhale for 4 and exhale for 6.
It's like bots breathing.
The longer exhale gets you in touch with your parasympathetic nervous system. There's the fight or the flight.
Mhm.
That's your sympathetic. I'm pretty sure.
It's
And
the
then-
opposite.
Oh, is it the opposite? Thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
I always get them confused.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the one
I'm
that
gonna
makes
double check
you
that.
calmer.
Yeah.
Right. The longer exhale gets you in touch with that, and if you just take a moment to do that, even once, and be really mindful for it, like hey, you're in a state of shock, you have that longer exhale, it really helps. It really does help. Yeah.
Yeah, the sympathetic nervous system division of the nervous system, the function produce localization adjustments to the increase and reflex of adjustments to the cardiovascular system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's it, man. Thank you very
Cool.
much. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
since you like this episode, go and subscribe, and I'm definitely going to have Josh back. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a lot more
that
questions.
sounds
for him.
lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.